A major breakthrough when it comes to treating coronavirus as more states in this country report a record number of new cases. Plus, President Trump signs an executive order on police reform. So, what's in it? Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Wednesday, June 17th. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo.
I could have sworn it was Thursday. No? Still
It
Wednesday?
is Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's amazing we're still having these, what day is it? We're like 3 months into this, but it's true. It still feels, every day sort of feels like the same thing. I know we've been saying that forever now.
And the weeks go quickly, but they also feel long.
Yeah, it's very strange.
As dumb as
it's
that
really
sounds,
weird.
up there
No,
with my
it's true.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. That's a
All right, let's
tautology,
get to the news, Carlo, unless you have something else. What?
No. I was just going to say, it is what it is a tautology, which I didn't know, but somebody actually tweeted us about them.
They tweeted us all of the tautologies that are in The Wire, which is one of my favorite shows, and it's awesome.
It's pretty funny.
We should probably retweet it. It was great.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, let's get to some news here. The coronavirus continuing its march through the Sun Belt here in the United States. Florida, Arizona, Texas have each set new single-day coronavirus case records. Infections have nearly doubled in Alabama and South Carolina week over week. Miami has put the next phase of its reopening on pause amid a rise in cases. Overseas, the flare-up in Beijing means that schools are going to be closed again. New CDC data shows the virus is 12 times deadlier for people with chronic illness, and that the racial gap is even wider than thought. Quickly, Carlo, I just want to mention, we're kind of putting Beijing in the same category as us in the United States. Beijing has like a handful of new cases. I think they have about 100 new cases.
Yeah.
We have 20,000 new cases in this country every single day. And we're kind of like business as usual. So I just want to show the difference again in how seriously they're taking this, that it's described as a wartime effort to get it under control right now. Mass testing,
it's like
shutting everything down. And we're just sort of like, okay, I guess this is what's going to be the situation for the next few months.
I mean, I think that is the sense out there. I have this theory about the Sun Belt, these states in the South that are seeing all this new rise in cases, and this is not scientific at all. Like, I have no idea if this is right, but it just seems like it would be right.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so these are states, right, where it's getting to the point in the year where it's already like too hot to be hanging out outside, right? So I think that more people are probably spending more time indoors and in the air conditioning, which is spreading it. Again, this is like the definition of a half-baked theory, but it's like I still have this sense that there's indoors is obviously way worse than outdoors. And it's in like the 90s and 100 degrees in the Southwest. Like, are people really like hanging out in the park anymore down there like they are here?
I've thought about this in terms of us here, because we've actually had a great June when it comes to weather, where it's sort of felt spring-like, and we've been outside and not a lot of humidity. But I've thought about that. We talk about this second wave in the fall or the winter, but come August, when it's 90 degrees and sticky, people are going to want to be indoors. But there might be something to that, Carlo, because there is this article from The Atlantic that we both read. It looked at specific cases from overseas. And they did find that researchers looked at like a few specific examples, and they found in one example when there was an outbreak at a restaurant, everyone who was sitting in the same line of airflow from the air conditioner got sick. Right. And yet people who were sitting next to them, but just, not 6 feet away, just 1 foot away, sitting at a table, they weren't in the direct airflow. So they did not get sick.
No, that's a great point.
By the way, I'm like that person who hates getting cold air blown on me from the air conditioning. So this is just another reason why I'm going to make my husband switch with me. Like, I'm like, are you getting I think
I
we need to switch seats.
I'm the opposite. I love the air, the cold air on me. Well, that's a good point. I'm going to actually retweet that article today because that people should really read that because that was a really good piece from a couple of weeks back. I'm also on COVID. Before we move on, I'm starting to be of the belief that like the case is really this meaningless statistic, meaningless word, because it's really about hospitalizations and the death rate, right? So cases are up. The death rate in the U.S. is actually down a bit. Deaths are, of course, a lagging indicator, so you got to sort of take that with a grain of salt because a rise in a spike in cases now could lead to a spike in deaths a couple of weeks from now. But we haven't really been seeing that lately, which is very, very good news that I think is getting sort of short shrift in the media. And I think that what it could be is a sign that maybe we're doing what we should have been doing from the beginning, right? Which is really protecting the most vulnerable people. Because if you assume that a lot of the people who are getting sick now are younger and healthier, they're the ones who are obviously much less at risk. That could be why the death rate's lower, and that would be a really good sign because it would show this sort of learned response from on behalf of society, right? That we've figured out, who is most at risk and who should be taken most care of. I think it could also have to do with some of these standards of care, like remdesivir, that are out there now. That sort of you know this drug is saving people's lives. People who get really really sick. So just some various things to think about here in terms of when you hear like there's these huge spike in cases, which is I'm not saying that that's not extremely worrisome that that's still happening, but.
Yeah, no, there's to your point, Carlo. Yesterday, huge news. Researchers in the UK say that they discovered that this inexpensive, generic, and widely available steroid has been effective in treating patients who are seriously ill with COVID-19, reducing deaths by as much as a third. This steroid is called dexamethasone, and it appears to help patients who have had bad enough respiratory infections that they need oxygen support. So much so that the study was done by Oxford. They actually found that thousands of lives in the UK alone would have been saved had this been available from the get go.
Yeah, this has the potential to be a big story, a big deal. It's annoying that they didn't publish the data for peer review. However, this is not a company putting this out. This is, very well-respected scientists at a very well-respected university. So I think that's important to take in mind, even though we are sort of taking their word for it. And this steroid, dexamethasone, has been in trials since March. I think we've talked about it probably in the past. It's been written about. It's not like it's this silver bullet, but it again, in the same way that remdesivir was such a big deal when that was shown to be somewhat effective. If these treatments help keep people from dying, that's a huge deal in terms of being able to, you take the death sentence off the table, right, of this disease for people most at risk. You can take more risks as a society. So yeah, definitely, potentially very, very good news here.
One of the, I saw that you had made that note. One of the reasons for releasing this info via press release right now, and that it's not yet peer reviewed, is just so many people are currently dying, right? So that's
Sure.
why this
Yeah.
whole process has kind of been different than others. So the thinking is better to get the info out now. And the cool thing about this drug is that most hospitals have it. It's like we said, it's widely available. It's already used to treat
Yeah.
a bunch
Think
of
like
other
altitude
conditions.
sickness.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just arthritis, things like that. So it's one of those drugs that's out there. And in terms of
Right.
risk reward, there's not major risks with it because it's so widely used. Um, so look, but it is a good point when you look back at maybe the back and forth with hydroxychloroquine, which we now know
Right.
has been reviewed and studied and found not to really help and to do more harm than good. But I guess in terms of this, there
Well, look,
is an
it's
ethical,
yeah, and
reason
I
to
get
get this
that.
info
I
out.
get that. I mean, look, these are tough decisions. I'm not making light of it, and I think I think everyone is doing what they believe to be right. It's just what gets complicated is you have all of this information out there, and then sometimes you have to walk stuff back, and then people stop believing what they're hearing. It's a really hard
Right.
news environment. It's a really hard information environment, but I get it.
All right, so let's switch gears now. President Trump signed an executive order on police reform that encourages changes to departments like a ban on chokeholds, but it does fall short of reforms that have been demanded by protesters. It does not make any mention of racism or how to handle racist police officers. And because law enforcement happens at the state and local levels, the federal government can mostly just incentivize departments to adopt reforms if they want federal grant money.
Yeah, look, it's a great case study actually, in how something isn't meant to do what it says. So this executive order supposedly bans chokeholds nationwide, but it then says, "quote unless a police officer's life is in danger," which is a phrase that renders what is in front of it to have no meaning, right? Because an officer can always just say that he thought his life was in danger. This is what has happened in the past. Chokeholds have been banned by the NYPD since 1993, but they've still been used since then. This is also why officers are almost never convicted at trial, because they typically just say they thought that their life was in danger to use deadly force. So I think you said it. I mean, look, it's something, but it's not. Nobody should think that this is going to, have any real impact.
All right, I think we should, Carlo, talk about the police reform movement and where things stand. I am concerned maybe we have been giving this story the short end of the stick because of just so much news out there. So you want to give us a quick update?
Yeah, I think, and it's true that, I mean, again, this is in a normal, in a normal environment, we'd probably be talking about, the Black Lives Matter movement more, the police reform movement more. These are big deals. But I think the thing with the police right now is, so you've got the left flank out of like sort of like the liberal, wing of the country out there with these calls to, either abolish or defund the police, which is a rallying cry that is polling at about 10%. At the other end of the spectrum, I think, is basically everybody else, except for maybe police officers and their union reps, who believe that policing in America needs like real structural changes. And I think that that's the vast majority of where Americans, where they stand. And I think that there's also two issues at play that often get conflated, right? Do the police have too much money, which has allowed them to become these kind of paramilitary, bloated paramilitary forces in some of these cities, or are they just too well protected from accountability? And I've said in the past, Jill, I think I use my hometown as an example, right? It's ridiculous to me that my tiny hometown in Westchester, New York, which has seen essentially no crime probably in 50 years, besides maybe like, when me and my friends were teenagers and we were like drinking in the woods. They drive around in these like pimped out Chevy Tahoes that look like they're going to battle in Iraq, and they have Harley Davidsons, even though they don't have a highway to drive in. I think that's crazy. But I think that the accountability issue is a big, probably an actual even bigger deal, and that goes back to police unions. Police unions make it extremely hard for bad cops to get fired. They make it too easy to obstruct the records of cops so they can be rehired elsewhere, even if they're fired for doing something bad. And at the risk of generalizing here, the left loves unions and hates police. The right loves the police and hates unions. It seems like there should be some room for compromise on this issue.
I think that's to your point, definitely a generalization, but
Sure.
So Atlanta actually laid out a series of reforms for their police, which, to your earlier point about the chokehold ban, except if a police life is in danger, and why that one is a slippery slope. I think that maybe these actually seem like some good changes. Officers are required to intervene when seeing another officer using force that is beyond what is reasonable under the circumstance. And I think, you think of George Floyd when you had three
Sure.
other officers standing around,
Yeah.
and perhaps that would have made the difference. Also, officers must apply de-escalation techniques to gain voluntary compliance and use only the amount of objectively reasonable force necessary to successfully protect themselves or others during an arrest. So I think that's maybe some wiggle room there. The objectionable, like I think there's always decisions that need to be made.
Well, look,
I think
policing.
we're
I
in this
mean, it's
process
very
where
hard to.
different sorry,
Go
just
ahead.
we're
Sorry.
different we're different police departments in different cities. Former President Obama has said that. He said every mayor across this country needs to be talking to their police department and thinking about what are their policies and how can we change the policies. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see local police departments making changes, local jurisdictions, and we'll see what works and what doesn't work. And then we'll have the same way in some ways we're learning about coronavirus and we're figuring out what's worked in different hospitals, laying people on their stomach versus their back or whatever it is. Hopefully, as there's changes made, we're going to learn what works and what doesn't. And then maybe there could be some type of uniform reform. I mean,
Right.
that's what people are calling on now. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I think at least these baby steps with the individual police departments is a good start.
Look, that's how change happens. I mean, however righteous you may think it is to call for the defunding of the police, that's not how the world works. Like that's just not going to happen. So, I am with you that change happens in these incremental steps, and the best thing that can come from this period of unrest in the country is those kinds of baby steps.
All right, let's talk a little. And by the way, as always, we welcome any feedback.
Yeah, tell us we're wrong for
And
sure.
whatnot. Okay, something that we want to keep an eye on overseas. Chinese soldiers killed 20 Indian troops in an extremely rare clash along this disputed border in the Himalayas, and it's raising a lot of tensions between the world's two most populous countries right now. Indian troops were actually beaten to death with rocks and sticks in this skirmish. It's the first time the two sides have had clashes in decades. China and India both have nuclear weapons, although China's military is significantly more powerful.
Jill, I was just thinking, what does 2020 need? You know what 2020 needs? A major war between two nuclear powers like India and China. Like, bring it on. No, I'm just kidding. It absolutely does not need that.
Pandemic.
And racial
Yeah.
strife. Let's get World War III. Why not?
And
No,
murder hornets, which we have not discussed in a a There's
yeah.
like
What happened to
deadly
the murder
mosquitoes
hornets?
going around, which we have not talked
Yes, there's
about, which we should.
West Nile. That's a good point. It's one of those years. No, something to keep an eye on for sure. I mean, it sounds like they're hopefully trying to de-escalate the situation, but just when you have two nuclear powers that border each other and they start killing each other's soldiers, always something you want to make note of.
Let's talk about the economy. Some surprising data on retail sales, which basically just means that purchases made at stores or online stores rose 18% in May. It's the biggest ever month-over-month increase. More retailers, of course, reopened. It's still below pre-pandemic levels, about 6% from the same time last year. But the data shows consumer activity is significantly up, although there is a big question about whether this is a blip or signs of a broader recovery. The market climbed about 2% on this.
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, this was a great report on the heels of that great jobs report last week. Um, it feels, Jill, like we're in this V recovery. But I think the question is it really a V or is it a W? Is it the first half of a W? I'm still pessimistic. I think it's the latter. I think we're still in this weird place right now where people are still working off of this enhanced unemployment. They still maybe have some of their stimulus money left. PPP loans aren't due. Evictions are still frozen. What happens when all those bills come due later in the summer and in the fall? That's what worries me. And just this morning, AT&T, which is one of the country's biggest employers, they're going to cut 5,000 jobs. So this is not over yet. But again, maybe I'm being too pessimistic. The market seems to think so.
No, I mean, we also know that it's easy to have the biggest increase after the biggest decrease, right? It's
It's
easy on the markets as well to have a huge rally after the market falls 5%.
Right.
So everything's relative. The fact that we're still below last year's levels, not totally surprising. Look, right now, there are a lot of people out there who are making more money on unemployment than they were at their jobs. Okay, my friend
Right.
is a trainer who actually owns the gym, and every day is a struggle for her and her husband. And I was talking to her, and I'm like, so are all your trainers um, training virtually? Because she is, and she
Right.
said no. She said they won't come back because they're making more money on unemployment. She's like,
Really?
they're living their
Wow.
best lives. They won't train. And her and her husband are basically hustling. They've no child care, so they have a young kid. And um, so I think that people do have money. The question is whether or not when that extra unemployment, when that dries up in July. So the
Yeah,
question
July
is
1, right?
is that going to be something where then people really pull back with spending? There also look also
Right.
if you're not going out, you're not buying clothes, right? And then we missed a whole season. We're not going to buy a
Yeah.
spring jacket now. That
Right.
whole season is gone of spring.
Right. Yeah, right. No, that's a good point. Um, yeah, look, we'll have to see, but I still, I wouldn't be making any major like investments or purchases right now.
And I'm not downplaying what's going on, and I would never wish unemployment on anybody, but I'm just trying to
Sure.
correlate the idea of spending with, there's so many people unemployed, but because of the stimulus plan, it gave people extra money to meet their
Yeah.
expenses. So they have like, I'm rightly or wrong, whatever the reason is, like it's good that people have more money, but when you have more money, you could spend. I
Well,
think that
Jill,
there's a
another way
real
to think
question
about
of what
that,
happens in July.
exactly. Another way to think about that is, that stimulus bill worked. That was a piece of legislation that, as messed up as this country is politically, we managed to pass, and it worked, and it helped people, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. One of the reasons is to help individuals and then also to keep those businesses afloat. Before we go,
Right.
though, I want to talk about the poll that I put out on Twitter in response to something that you had said on the podcast, because you were basically um, saying that your wife and you have this big debate always about the thermostat, and she likes it hot, you like
Yes.
it cold. So um, most people thought that 68 to 72 was about where they would keep it, but a surprising number of people said 72 to 75. So a lot of people are with your wife.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They
It's
like it
funny, Joe,
hot.
because a couple people, a couple of our listeners who have been married like a long time, emailed me or they tweeted me, and they were like, welcome to like the struggle of your life. Like, this is what you and your wife will fight about now for the rest of time. Like, this is what marriage is. Like, welcome to the big leagues, which I just thought was, I thought was very funny. But I
I
still think
thought that
she's good.
when you were talking about it, I'm just like, this is it. This is the biggest
Yeah,
thing that a lot of couples have to deal with. And I can't believe I'm
and we
just going
should
to
be so
continue to
lucky.
go. I can't believe I'm going to continue to go back to Seinfeld, but he did a really funny bit in the same special. I don't know why it's just
Yeah,
relating to stuff we're talking about. Where he was talking about, how some cars have two separate air conditioning and heating for the driver
yeah,
and the passenger, and he's like, it's so you're in a box that's 3 feet
right,
by 3 feet. And he's like, it would
right.
be like if you went and asked for a cup of coffee and you said, I want I'm going to take the left side of it black, and then I'm going to have half and half on the other side. And it's like,
I
what are
thought
we
about that
doing?
before. Yeah, I thought about that before.
But yet
All
at
right,
least
so,
you don't
yeah.
have the cold air blowing on you
Oh, that's what I
if you're
like,
on one
though.
side. I know. Well, that's the whole idea. All right, we're gonna leave it there. Carla, did you have anything to? I think you wanted to throw in
Oh
a
yeah,
quick
well, no, just
promotion.
my usual promotion. Check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/Cheddar Live. We're posting these podcasts as videos. If you would prefer to watch them there, please do so. But if you don't, that's cool too.
All right, everybody. That's what you need to know for Wednesday, June 17th.
Thanks, folks.